Shellye, it's so fabulous to have you here, and I'm excited because you've really achieved an incredible success throughout your career. But every journey has its ups and downs, and maybe you could share a little bit of the adversity and the ultimate, what shaped you, and what's your approach to leadership and success?
Okay, sure. So that's a lot of topics
I
there,
know,
Kris.
I know. Start from the top, right?
Yeah, exactly. Start from the top. Well, I built my entire career in tech. So I
Hmm.
started out in tech in the early 80s, back when, frankly, there weren't a lot of women in tech, and there definitely weren't a lot of people of color in tech.
That's right.
So, I forged new ground on many fronts. I started out my career actually in sales at IBM. So I was carrying a bag, trying to sell hardware, software, services, right, for IBM.
Yeah.
And, it was interesting. I tell people all the time, I think sales is one of the best jobs out there for almost any career. At some point, everybody should sell
Yeah.
because the adversities you get, which are basically being told, no, you can't do something,
Right.
or no, you're not getting the promotion, or no, right, we're not going to pay you this much, or no. I mean, all throughout your entire career, you get no's.
Right.
And that was probably always the biggest hurdle. But I learned early in sales that a no doesn't mean no. A no basically means something's not right,
Right.
right? Timing may not be right. The value proposition may not be right. It could be skill sets, it could be experience, it could be sponsor, who knows? But the
Right.
key is getting a no is a wonderful door to open so that you can figure out why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
And once you understand why not, you can address it. So throughout my career, whenever I got the, oh no, right? You can't do this, or oh no, right? That opportunity is not available. I just took it as a, okay, something's not right. Let's figure out how to make it right so we can move forward. So I never let the no's stop me.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I needed to hear that. I just had a no this morning. Was like, but and and my mom would always say, and then the no is the next yes. So I've learned to process it the same way, and it really does change the energy of your momentum when you do that. I really
Yes.
And I'm proud of you. I mean, in the sense that you're the first Black female CEO, right? I mean, you get
Yeah.
it.
Right. In Silicon Valley,
In,
not in general, but in Silicon
no, in
Valley in terms of
Silicon
companies at
Valley, which
scale.
is
Yes.
very,
Yes.
I grew up in the Bay Area. I know, and it's very boxed in and full of all that stuff. So, of course, you had really unique challenges and navigating the intersection of race and gender and all these things that everybody's really preoccupied with instead
Right.
of your talents and the competitiveness of everything.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Okay.
exactly. It's all of that, Kris. And what I learned beyond getting past the no, right, is whenever I hit challenges, right, the adversity, whatever was a hurdle, I don't know how to deal with something, or I'm not getting the right support I should, or right, something's happening. What I did is I always reached out for help,
Mm,
because that's the other thing that people don't realize is nobody accomplishes anything of significance all by themselves. Nobody does. Now they might tell you they did, but don't believe them because it's not true. All right. Nobody does. So the key is when you face a challenge, right? When you can't figure out how to get your voice heard, right? I mean, I can give you an example. I was sitting in these meetings. I was on my first board, right? I'm sitting in meetings and I'm making comments, but it's not really, I don't feel like anybody's really taking them seriously, or it's not leading to real discussion. And so I had a couple choices. One, I could sit there and just be upset, right? Which that's
right,
not going to do anything.
right.
But instead, I decided to ask for help. I reached out to another board member, on the side and said, listen, you may not have noticed, but in meetings, right, I find blah, 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 blah. If you wouldn't mind, if I say something that you think is reasonable or that you agree with or whatever, I'd appreciate it if you just reinforce it. And you know what? He did. And honestly, after a couple of times of him doing that,
Mm,
I was then fine, right? Everything was good.
right.
So you'd be surprised. I find that if you ask people in the right way,
Hmm.
most people are willing to help you. So ask for help.
Right. That's It's as simple, but most people are shy or in, their ego or whatever. They don't want to show that they don't know. But that vulnerability is really huge. And you have to have such a balance inside. And that's what I'm curious about, your sense of balance and fulfillment outside of your career, because you're extremely successful. And then how does that balance of your personal and passions in your life come together?
Yeah, no, great question. Except I have to tell you, Kris, the term balance,
Yeah.
I really can't stand that term.
Okay. Okay.
But let me explain why. No, let me explain why. When you think of a balance, right? I mean, a real balance. A balance is like this fixed metal structure, right? With a bar goes across the top and you have two weights on both sides
Yeah.
that are even at all times, right? That's
Uh-huh.
a balance.
Okay.
But you think about it, it's static, right? It's static. It never
Right.
moves.
Right.
Well, my life's not static. I know your life hasn't been static. Nobody's life is. So all of a sudden, we're going to say, all right, we have to hold our life in balance, work and personal in balance, static at all times.
Yeah.
And no, life is like this,
Hmm.
right? And I
Right.
think it's important that it's not so much about balance
Mm.
as it is about prioritization and getting done what needs to get done when it needs to get done. And there are going to be times when, frankly, the priorities are heavier on the work side, and there will be times when the priorities are heavily on the personal side, and that's okay. The key is you take the priorities, personal, professional, you put those two things together, and then you reprioritize ruthlessly, right? Ruthlessly, so that the things that need to get done across your life get done.
Right.
Now, that means that a few things on that list probably aren't going to get done, which means you either have to learn how to live with it. You know what? It's just not going to get done. Or ask for help. Find somebody else to do it,
Hmm.
right? Find somebody else to do it. But at least you now make a conscious decision versus if you have too much on your plate and you're trying to juggle this balance, what happens is things fall off the plate and then they break. And
Right.
now you have problems.
Right.
Better for you to decide yourself, figure out how to handle it, right? But get those things that are important across your personal and professional done. So that's how I think about it. It's integrating your life.
Great. That's the best explanation I heard about balance. Seriously. Heard a lot of them too, because it isn't static, it's flowing. And
Yeah,
one day it's
exactly.
like this is, and the prioritizing, lately I've been having massive amount of challenges. It's like, what is the 911 right now? What do I take care of right now?
Yeah.
And and staying present too. That's
Hmm.
right, to be able to even
Hmm.
hear and know that. So that's very cool. And your book, Unapologetically Ambitious, that's such a cool title. And
Thank you.
it really is. And encourages readers to take risks and break
Mhm.
barriers, which you've done. What's one risk that you've taken in your career that you initially feared, but ultimately it propelled you forward?
Oh my goodness, there have been so many. So one risk was taking an international assignment in Japan.
Hmm.
So here I am. I'm working for IBM at the time. I'm an executive, and there's an opportunity that eh, I've wanted. There's an opportunity to indeed I would be the first Black female ever sent on an overseas executive assignment. I'd be the general manager and vice president for Asia Pacific for the public sector industries. And at the same time, it was like, wow, I have to move my family, my husband, my kids to Tokyo,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I've got to figure out how to work in that environment, in that culture where, oh, by the way, being male is super important in business. You
Hmm.
know, next is age. They like wisdom. So leaders tend to be more like in their 50s and 60s. And I was in my 30s, and people reporting to me were going to be in their 60s, right? It was going to be very different. And by the way, I'm also tall, which you can't tell on this podcast, but I stand barefoot, 5'10", and the average Japanese is much shorter, right? And so you put all those things together, and I didn't really fit in. So it's like, okay, can I be successful in this completely different environment and a completely different culture and trying to be successful in business while I'm trying to get my family settled in a completely different world? So big risk, but it totally paid off. It was an outstanding experience.
That's very cool. What a neat story. I mean, I can imagine, and I imagine it was pretty, you're not just going there with all of that, but you're also taking family and then integrating
Yes,
into that society. That's
exactly.
huge. That's a leap in faith, right?
It is, it is. But you know what? One of the biggest things I've learned is that the fact that I've been a minority, an underrepresented minority, either, I've been the only female or the only person of color or whatever, I'd actually built up a lot of skills on
Mhm.
how to operate in a different environment. So when I got to Japan, I was used to being the odd person out, right? But
Yeah,
it turned out most of my peers, most of the white males, they weren't used to it. They were used to everything they did and everything they accomplished always came with them. Whereas I knew every time I showed up, I had to prove myself, right? Every single time. So when
right.
I showed up in Japan, I approached it that way.
Yeah.
They didn't always. So they tended to struggle, right, initially on how to, whereas I had all these skills that I didn't realize I had on how to establish myself in a different environment. So I was actually got traction and started making progress and things much faster. My boss called me in like a few months into it and said, Shellye, what are you doing? You're here and you're already getting things going. How are you doing this?
Mm.
So what I tell people is all that adversity that you face at times, for whatever reason, just gives you skills you don't even realize you have. So take more risks because you'll be able to leverage them in new and challenging environments.
That's so perfect, and it's really appropriate for the times we're in right now and all the things that are coming. That attitude. I want to hear another one. Give me another story because that was very cool and really can help people right now with all that the adversity and things that's happening.
Yeah, I would say, let's see, another big risk, because I thought, man, if I do this, I'm not going to get the job,
Right?
was asking. I tell people it's important to ask for what you want,
Mm,
right? The worst that can happen is somebody will say no. So here I was in Dallas, Texas, and I was interviewing for a job in San Francisco. And the job that they were wanting me to come do was the executive vice president of sales. All right, EVP of sales. Fine. So the question I always ask when I'm looking at a new job is, how are you going to measure success? Right? Because they always have a job description, they have measurements. But you know what? I found that if you actually ask them, how are you going to measure success? A lot of times it's different.
right.
So how they're going to measure success was, well, growing the revenue, of course, but they also wanted to reduce the cost of sale
Mhm.
and they wanted to grow faster. And I said, okay, in that case, I want to have responsibility for marketing too. And like, well, wait a minute, we already have a head of marketing. I said, I understand that. I said, but if you want to optimize cost of sale is the cost of sales and the cost of marketing. Unless I have both, I'm not going to be able to optimize that for you quickly,
Mm,
right? That's
right.
because you just said you want to do all three things
Huh.
quickly.
Yep.
Well, you know what? I became the chief marketing officer and EVP of sales.
So cool.
So
Yeah.
it's a risk to ask for what you want. But remember, as long as you have a good case, I had a rational reason. They
Mhm.
could have said no, and then I would have said, okay, but I would have reset expectations. Then, all right, then you've got to give me more time to reduce the cost of sale because I'm going to have to negotiate every step of the way, right,
Right.
with marketing.
Brilliant.
So
Yeah.
ask for what you want.
Yeah.
But the other piece is always make sure you understand how they're going to be evaluating you. What does success look like? So that you can make sure you actually achieve it.
Mm, beautiful. Well put. You talk about mentorship and sponsorship are often they're cited as critical factors in career success. And maybe tell us about a mentor or someone that sponsored who played a big role in your journey and how that guidance impacted where you went.
Yeah. So actually, I've been fortunate, really have, Kris. I've had a lot of mentors. So I'd like to tell one story just to set up the stage, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Pardon me, just get over a cold. So I was at IBM at the time. I was probably 5, 6 years in, and they decided that they wanted all of their, high potential employees to have mentors. So
Yeah.
they asked us, who would you like your mentor to be? Well, I picked a gentleman. His name was Roland Harris. He was a couple levels above me. I knew him. I thought he liked me. So I thought, okay, he'd be a good person. So I
Mhm.
put his name down. Well, Kris, I get a call several days later. Shellye, hey, Roland, Shellye, you put my name down to be your mentor. I'm thinking, oh my God. I said, well, yeah, Roland, I thought you liked me. They said, Shellye, you've got me. Go get somebody else. I was
Mhm.
like, what? So what I learned in that very short conversation, but what I
Right.
learned was he already thought of himself as a mentor. So this whole mentor mentee thing, it doesn't have to be formal,
Hmm.
right? And
Right.
number two, he told me to get another one,
Mm.
which meant I could have as many as I wanted.
Yeah.
So, Kris, I started literally adopting mentors all over the place. Anybody that I thought I could learn from, that could be helpful, right? I just started treating them in
Right.
terms of like mentors. And
Yeah.
so I've literally had a ton. And it's through my mentors that, opportunities, sometime arose. It's through my mentors that I got really good advice. I'll never forget one of my mentors, this is another IBM, and I'll do a sponsor one when I was at Zaplet. But one of my mentors said to me, actually, I'll tell you a different one. I was at Blockbuster, I was president of Blockbuster.com, and the chief marketing officer, we're together, and he asked me once, he goes, Shellye, who do you turn to get, advice, perspective when you're strategizing, ideas? And I said, oh, and I named a few people at Blockbuster. And he said, no, 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 I mean outside of the company. And I was like, outside the company? I mean, to this point, I'd spent 15 years at IBM. We never talked to people outside. I never did outside of IBM. I always talked to people inside of IBM. I'm like, I can talk to people outside of IBM about the strategy, whatever. And he said, yes. He goes, I actually keep a set of people who I used to bounce ideas off to give me broader perspectives. And I
Mm.
was like, ah. So I started doing that.
Oh,
It's all you can learn from anybody. They can be a peer, as he was. They
yeah,
can be above you. I mean, you can honestly learn from anyone.
that's right. That's absolutely right. And that's how you climb the ladder, right? And it all works together. Well, I know you're excited about your book, right?
I am.
Unapologetically ambitious. I think that's great. Good. So tell us a little bit about it, and of course, tell us where to get it.
Sure. So
And,
first of all, you can actually get it at Amazon and any retailer. You can come to my website at shellye.com
mhm,
um, to get it. But unapologetically ambitious, take risks, break barriers, and create success on your own terms is all about how to get what you want out of life, professionally, personally, by being intentional. And I share tips, advice, tactics, just kind of things I'm sharing here
mhm.
about how to basically improve your odds because a career is nothing more than a set of decisions that you make along the way. Hold on, let me do that again.
Okay, no problem.
Hmm. A career is nothing more than a set of decisions that you make along the way that either improve your odds or worsen your odds to get the next opportunity. So I believe strongly in trying to approach your career in terms of, this is what I want. How can I improve my odds to get it? And in the book, I basically tell you how to do that. So that's unapologetically ambitious. And the title I came up with because I knew I wanted ambition in the title because too many people along the way, Kris said, oh, you're ambitious. And
Mm.
it wasn't meant as a compliment, which
Oh,
frankly, goodness, sorry.
that's
Let's
okay.
try that again. Thank God we're recording. Hold on.
Right, right. We'll edit it.
Okay. Ah, okay. And the title, Unapologetically Ambitious, came about because I knew I wanted ambition in the title. I mean, along the way, Kris, so many people told me I was ambitious, and it wasn't meant as a compliment, which frankly is ridiculous. You
Right.
would never race your kids, tell them, work hard, do extracurriculars, take an instrument, show interest, show leadership. But don't be ambitious,
Mm.
right?
Right.
It's crazy.
It
To
is.
me, ambition just means that you have something in the future that you're working toward with intent. So, unapologetically ambitious. Everyone, everyone deserves to be ambitious. and nobody should have to apologize for it.
Absolutely. It's the end, it's like the engine, that and there's a lot of misconceptions about climbing the ladder and all of that, right? But it's an energy you're having to keep going and not apologize for who you are or the energy that you have to win, to be successful.
Right, exactly. I mean,
Right?
ambition doesn't mean that you're stepping on others and you're,
No, right.
pardon me, stepping on others, taking no prisoners. That's just being rude.
Yeah, that's
That's
rude.
nothing to do with, that has nothing to do with ambition.
Exactly. And it's a good thing. I mean, better, it's using your talents to help others and succeed and all that good stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, again, tell everybody where to get your book one more time.
Sure, at Shellye, www.shellye.com or Amazon.
All right. All right. Shellye, it's fun talking to you. You are a bright light and it really shows. And I'm really glad that we got to talk to you today and hopefully everybody will take a read of your book. And I just want to thank you for being here and joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Kris. I've enjoyed it.
All right. As we wrap up today's episode of Money 911, I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to our guest, Shellye, for sharing her wisdom, insights, and infectious ambition with us. Remember, whether you're navigating a career transition, striving for the next promotion, or daring to pursue your boldest dreams, Shellye's story reminds us that success is not just about breaking barriers. It's about creating your own path unapologetically. Join us next time for more expert advice and empowering conversations right here on Money 911. There's so much to learn about healthy money. I hope today's discussion brings you one step closer to securing and protecting your future. So you can get started on the right foot, go to meetwithkrismiller.com and schedule your free financial fitness strategy session. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe to Money 911 so you don't miss our next episode, which includes health, wealth, and peace of mind.